Hi everyone. So since that the 2010s decade is almost over, I thought that it would be a good time to count down what are my top 10 favorite animated movies of the 2010s decade. Alright, okay, so before I get started with this list, I do want to make some things clear. Please note the disclaimer that is in the description to this video. For this list, there can only be one movie per franchise. Please keep in mind that my opinion has changed a lot, so this list might not be permanent. And also, please keep in mind that I will be going over some spoilers in this video, so spoiler alert. Thank you all very much. Alright, okay, so here is this entire list ranked from number 10 to number 1. Number 10, Shrek Forever After. Alright, okay, so even though I don't think that this movie is at the same level as the previous Shrek movies, I still think that this movie is really, really awesome. I think it has a really good plot involving Shrek wanting to go back to the way things used to be before him and Donkey rescued Fiona from the Dragon's Keep way back, like back in the very first movie in the Shrek franchise. And this movie, and I also really like how later in the movie, Shrek regrets that. And I also think that this movie has probably the best villain in the entire Shrek franchise, which is Rumpelstiltskin. I really, really like Rumpelstiltskin. He's a very, very enjoyable character in my opinion. And this movie also has, like, what I consider to be the saddest scene in Shrek history, which is the part where Shrek dies and disappears. I find it to be really, really sad, even though Shrek comes back to life, by turning back time and stuff. Overall, I think that this is a really good animated sequel. Number 9, Phineas and Ferb the Movie, Across the Second Dimension. Alright, okay, so this is the first Disney movie that is on this list. In my opinion, this movie is easily one of the greatest Disney movies ever. I really like how they go to different dimensions in this movie. I think that's really cool. And definitely my favorite character from this movie would be Dr. Doofenshmirtz. I think he is a very, very enjoyable character easily. I think he's a pretty funny character in this movie. And I also think that he's the same way. I also think that he's the exact same way. I also think that he's pretty much the exact same way in this show. And this movie also has what I consider to be a really sad goodbye scene between Perry and Phineas and Ferb. I find it to be really sad, even though this movie is not really the finale to the Phineas and Ferb series. I still find it to be really, really sad. Overall, I think that this is a great Disney animated movie. Number 8, Incredibles 2. This animated movie is a sequel to what I consider to be one of the best movies ever from both Disney and Pixar. And that movie is titled The Incredibles. Even though I think that this movie has a possibility of not being as good as the original, I still think that it's a really, really great movie. I really like the plot of this movie, and I also really like how this movie focuses more on Helen and the kids in the Incredibles family more than the original movie did. I think that's a nice touch. So yeah, I do overall think that this is a very, very, very great and enjoyable animated movie. I also think that this movie is pretty funny too, even though, I think it might not be as funny as the original movie, but I still think it's a pretty funny movie. Overall, I think that this is another one of the greatest Disney movies ever. Yeah, overall, I do think that this is another one of the greatest Disney movies ever. Number 7, The Peanuts Movie. In my opinion, this movie is easily a really nice addition to the Peanuts franchise, and I do really, really enjoy this movie. I find the ending to this movie to be unexpectedly sad, with, Charlie Brown and the little red-haired girl named Heather both becoming pen pals and saying bye to each other. I find it to be a really sad scene, and then a lot of the other kids from Peanuts becoming respecting Charlie Brown and pretty much becoming friends with him. I think that was a really sad and nice ending to this movie. I also find this movie to be pretty funny, especially with Snoopy. I think that Snoopy is easily the funniest character in the entire Peanuts franchise. Overall, I do easily consider this animated movie to be a very, very, very enjoyable animated movie. And of course, I do think that is another one of the best animated movies of the 2010s decade. Number 6, Despicable Me. Okay, so this movie is the very first movie in the Despicable Me franchise, and I also consider this movie to be the very best movie in the Despicable Me franchise as well. I think that easily the best character in this movie is Gru. I find Gru to be a very, very enjoyable animated villain that like turned into anti-hero. Like I really like how Gru turns into a villain later in this movie. He's easily my favorite character in the entire Despicable Me franchise. And this movie also has what is my absolute favorite villain in the entire Despicable Me franchise. And his name is Vector, also known as Victor. I think he is such a great character. He's a very, very enjoyable character. I think he's pretty funny, and he is such a great villain for this movie, in my opinion. He's possibly, I think that he's possibly the funniest villain. Like, I think that he's possibly the funniest character in the entire Despicable Me franchise. I also think that this is another one of those animated movies with a sad ending, involving Rue readopting the three girls, Margot, Edith, and Agnes. I find it to be a really sad ending. Overall, this is definitely another one of my favorite movies. Number 5, The Last, Naruto the movie. Okay, so it was a really close choice between this animated movie and Boruto Naruto the movie. And while I do really, really like both movies, I think that this movie is a little bit better. Like, I think that this movie, The Last Naruto the movie, like, I think that this movie, which is titled, I think that this movie, which is titled The Last Naruto the movie, has what is possibly the greatest animation in the entire Naruto franchise. I really, really like the animation in this movie, especially at the scene where Naruto and Hinata kiss each other. I also think that this movie has really, really nice action in it. I think that this movie has really great action in it and really good fight scenes in it as well. And of course, I also really like the scene where both Naruto and Hinata kiss each other. I think that's a really dramatic. I think that's a really dramatic and epic scene. So yeah, overall, I do think that this movie from the Naruto franchise is easily one of the best animated movies of the 2010s decade, and is more than worthy of being on this list. Number 4, Toy Story 3. So the two Toy Story movies that came out, so the two Toy Story movies that came out in theaters in this 2010s decade was Toy Story 3 and Toy Story 4. And while I do really, really like both movies, I think that Toy Story 3 is a little bit better, even though I think that Toy Story 4 has like a more sad ending to it. I think that Toy Story 3 is better because it has a better plot, and I find it to be more interesting. And I also think that Toy Story 3 also has like a sad ending to it as well, like involving Andy giving his toys to Bonnie, and I find it to be really, 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 really sad ending, considering the fact that Annie spent so much time with those toys, having fun with those toys. I think it's a really, really sad ending. So yeah, overall, I do think that this is another one of the best Disney movies ever. I also think that it's another one of the best Pixar movies ever. I think it's more than worthy of being on this list. I think it's a very, very great animated movie. Number 3, Dragon Ball Super Broly. So this animated movie is like the most recent animated movie that is on this list too. And I think that this movie is easily one of the best movies in the entire Dragon Ball franchise. I really enjoy this movie. I really love the action in this movie. I really love how characters like Goku, Vegeta, and Frieza all fight Broly in this movie. And in my opinion, the action in this movie is so awesome. Probably my favorite part of this movie is the part where Gogeta is probably my favorite moment in this movie would probably be like when Gogeta and Broly are fighting each other. I think the animation action during that battle is so awesome. I think the action scenes look beautiful in this movie. And of course, I also really, really love both the interactions and dialogue between both Goku and Vegeta in this movie. I think this is such an awesome movie. I think it's easily one of the best things to come out of the entire Dragon Ball franchise. Such a awesome movie. So yeah, I really, really do love this animated movie so much. I think it's easily another one of the best animated movies of the 2010s decade. And I think it is so worthy. Like, I think it is so worthy, like, for this list. Number 2, regular show, the movie. Alright, okay, so this movie is the only Cartoon Network original movie that is on this list. In my opinion, I think it's also the best Cartoon Network original movie ever, aside from Ed, Edd and Eddy's Big Picture Show. The main reason as to why I love this movie so much is because of the stuff between both Mordecai and Rigby in this movie. Like, I really love how at some point in the movie, Mordecai finds out about a secret that Rigby had kept from him for a long time, and that secret is this. Back when both Mordecai and Rigby were in high school, Rigby lied to Mordecai, saying that Rigby got into College U when Mordecai didn't, when really, Mordecai got into College U when Rigby didn't. So yeah, Mordecai finds out about that secret at some point in the movie, and that causes him to end his friendship with Rigby. But both Mordecai and Rigby become friends with each other again near the end of the movie. I find it to be really cool and interesting, especially considering the fact that both Mordecai and Rigby are my favorite duo in regular show history. I think that this animated movie is possibly the best thing in regular show history. I also really like the soundtrack, and I also really like the soundtrack and battles in this movie as well. I think that's a really nice touch too. So yeah, overall, I think that this movie is easily, one of the greatest animated movies ever. And of course, I also think that it's one of the greatest animated movies of the 2010s decade. Number 1, Megamind. Okay, so I think that this movie so deserves the number 1 spot on this list. I think it is easily one of the greatest kids' movies ever. I really do love this movie so much. And definitely my 2 favorite characters from this movie would be both Megamind and Hal, also known as Titan. I really enjoy both animated characters in this animated movie. And I'd say probably the funniest character in this movie would be Hal, also known as Titan. I think he's a really funny and enjoyable character. And I think he gets really great dialogue in this movie. And Megamind is easily one of my favorite animated anti-heroes ever. I also really love the soundtrack to this movie too. And this movie also has what I consider to be one of the greatest animated final battles ever. I think that this animated movie has really enjoyable characters, such as Megamind, Hal, also known as Titan, and some other characters. I think this movie has really enjoyable characters in it. And I easily consider this to be one of the best DreamWorks movies ever. In my opinion, this movie very easily deserves the number 1 spot of this list, and I easily consider it to be the best movie of the 2010s decade. So that's why it is at number 1 on this list. Well, that is it for this list, everyone. Bye, everyone, and thank you all for watching this video.